So my question is for you, Natalie. You had mentioned earlier about working with clients that don't really want to talk about DEI. So how do you help them see that it's an imperative that they address that, especially when it comes to talent acquisition? I can tell you, so Ada and I work at the same company.
Yep.
And our goal is to be 51% BIPOC by 2025. We're very intentional.
Go. How big are you?
About 250.
Okay. You can do that. You can do that.
Oh, yeah.
So my last company was a company called, my last startup that I worked at was a company called Stash Invest. It's a fintech app that basically teaches people who have who we were going after were the unbanked, the people who had been systematically left out of learning how to invest, and things like that. And so how do you get them on the same page? That's hard. That's really hard. But the data, throw a rock and you'll hit a study that says the most diverse teams build the best products. This isn't like a theory. This isn't, the thing I used to say to all of our employees on day one in their onboarding would be we want people from, and we did build a company that we got it to 52%, everyone was a knowledge worker, 52% people of color. We built an 100% engineering team that we got to 30% women, which is as I told my team, everybody's like, oh yeah, that's great. I'm like, let's celebrate when we're at 50. And they were not junior women. None of these these were not juniors. These were all seniors. And part of that was because they saw themselves in the people that they were interviewing with. They literally saw themselves. And I can't tell you how many times people said, I joined this organization because I've never been in a tech company where I've seen someone that looks like me and comes from the same background as me. So I think with that, it's purely data. And it is the easiest thing to find data on. It is the easiest thing. But the one point I would say is if they are not on board, and I mean 100% on board, and what that means is things are going to take longer, probably. You're going to have to interview a lot more people. If they're not on board, don't touch it. Because it has to come from the top. And if it's not that important to them, I don't want to do anything that is performative when it comes to DEI. So for me, if I have a founder who's like, yeah, but we just want the best person, and that's probably going to be like this guy or whatever, I'm like, okay, so this is not an approach that they really give a shit about. So we're gonna let that one go. That's just not gonna be a thing for them.
Do you have any ERGs in your workplace?
Oh yeah.
Oh great. One avenue to explore, just partnering with them, partnering with your ERGs in the hiring front. You could, in some cases, let's say you have a group of finalists. Do they want to have an exploratory call with one of the members of the ERGs, one of the leaders of the ERGs? We used it as a sell tactic at the Times. And I do the exact same thing at Axios. It's an incredible sell tactic to let the candidate know this is exactly the type of culture that you're about to walk into, how we truly treat DEI here, not just from a recruiting standpoint.
Ada is our DEI specialist in she actually
love it.
She's on my team. So
Great.
And so she's part of the interviewing process. Someone from our ERG is part of the interviewing process. So we kind of rotate it like that. So people know our data is visual on our website. Everybody can see what we look like internally. And our founders are extremely intentional about it. They are.
That's right.
They're Middle Eastern and Chinese.
Nice.
Chinese. So very intentional about that. Our executive leadership team looks like that. So some of the things that you're mentioning, and you're right, it's a slow crawl. Yep. It really is. Yep.
But you know what? Here's the thing. I've told everyone this. You can change it. Mm-hmm. You can actually grow that population if you're doing the right activities. And part of that is something so simple as if you're trying to pull in neurodiverse people, let's talk about something that, like, we talk about diversity being like people of color, etc. Let's talk about neurodiverse people, which we know in tech that's like huge. Have a person who is neurodiverse on your interview panel.
Or running the technical assessment.
Technical assessment. And let when the candidate starts to see themselves reflected by the other employees, that's what brings people to you, because you see someone who is being really successful in their role, and maybe they've never even seen that before, honestly.
At the times, there were 3 very specific rules when it came to recruiting that we had to abide by. One was having an equal number of underrepresented candidates at each stage of the process. It was mandated. So in turn, we didn't actually, we did measure time to hire, but from the top, we didn't care about time to hire. We cared about the quality of the hire and ensuring that that was the right person in the right spot. 2 was ensuring a diverse interviewing panel, just like you said, the candidate can experience exactly who they'd be working with and a range of underrepresented talent from there. And 3 was on the, if we did not meet any of those, we would have to bucket that role into a different spreadsheet, and we would track at the end of the year, this is why, this is the exception that had to be made, etc. But those were some a very easy formula that increased the number of underrepresented hires. And I think during 2020, summer of 2020, and the aftermath of the murder of George Floyd and the height of the Black Lives Matter movement, I want to say maybe it was second half of 2020, 80% of our hires came from underrepresented groups. Everyone was incredibly bought into it. So it's those very simple rules yield very high results.
Yep.
Yeah. And for me, gone are their days where I allow a hiring manager to use not a good culture fit as an excuse, because
that's I heard someone say that on one of my founders say that. I'm not going to mention names, but I was like, yeah, we don't say that anymore. We we say culture add, who is going to add to what we already have. It's also, I will just say, if anyone's using culture fit, I'll give you a great example of why not to use it, which is one of my VP of sales let a sales candidate go and said it was because it wasn't a good culture fit. And he happened to be Armenian or something like that. And he was like, oh, really? You're going to, he took it as his personal culture, which someone could easily do. And what I tell all my companies now, and everyone should know this, what used to be an HR nightmare for us is now a PR nightmare for us. So they are always, it could be on Twitter before you leave that room. So just being super, super, super thoughtful about that.